I am trapped, stuck in a cycle I've never been able to break. I want to believe this is the last time, but I don't know for sure.
Twenty-One Pilots just announced their newest album, Breach, releasing in September with a single coming out in June. While this may seem out of the blue since Clancy was released not even a year ago, fans who have been keeping up with their latest tour and social media posts will see that this has been well anticipated. In this video, I'm going to give a brief recap of the lore that we learned over the Clancy tour, as well as social media posts that the band has been posting lately, and we'll then go into my predictions for where the story is headed in the new album. 21 Pilots recently wrapped up their Clancy World Tour, ending on May 14th in London. The tour itself was chock full of stuff relating to the narrative, from a fan exhibit including letters from Dima citizens to on-stage depictions of Dima complete with Tyler and Josh in costume. But as the tour began to wrap up, the lore only grew with each show, culminating with perhaps the biggest lore plot point to ever come out of a live Pilots concert. Now, I'll admit, it's been a hot minute since I've made a video, and I totally meant to make a tour recap earlier on in the year, but alas, life got busy. I'll try my best to do a brief recap of all the lore that we've gotten from the tour so far, but I'll mainly spend the video analyzing the most recent lore developments. Before the show even began, we got our first hints of lore coming from the fan premiere exhibit, a walkthrough museum of the band's history that would be popping up at every stop of the tour. While the main point of the pop-up was to give more insight into the band's history and show some relics from the past, like handwritten song lyrics and outfits worn on stage, there was also a whole fan lounge set up like a bandito camp. In every fan exhibit, there was one part of a letter, written from Dima citizens to one another. These letters seem to mostly serve as a way to flesh out the world of Dima more, providing insight into the world's inhabitants other than just Clancy and Torchbearer, but they also contained a hidden message, notated by the doubling of certain letters. The letters themselves seem to all take place in the lead up to Paladin Strait, explaining the story of how the citizens were preparing for rebellion and convincing others to join their cause. The final letter is one from Torchbearer to Clancy, letting him know that the citizens are ready and that they will get Clancy to the tower that we see in the Paladin Strait music video. The hidden message throughout these letters is, we must destroy them or we will become them, and if we become them, we must do better. This is obviously referring to the bishops and how the banditos must destroy them before more people turn into them, but also a warning that if they do slip into becoming like the bishops, that they must do everything in their power to be different, to use their power for good. On the final night of the US leg, the Blurryface Twitter account posted this image of a bishop cloak with a letter to Clancy taped to it, which later came to life at the FPE, appearing in the bandito camp area of the exhibit. Said letter had the words "Dear Clancy" written in big red letters on it, as well as being covered in blurry face paint. Along with this, there were also messages from the sacred municipality of Dima, scattered around the bandito camp, warning of the rebellion and to report any unusual activity. These were also covered in paint, and all had "Dear Clancy" written on them. Moving on to the actual concert itself, we received a few nods to the narrative through the set design, outfits, and other aspects of the show. The show opens with Overcompensate, when Tyler and Josh are dressed as Clancy and Torchbearer from the music video. Tyler is using a glowing microphone throughout the song, very similar to the one used in the Fairly Local music video. I'm not going to overanalyze this today, I just thought that it was an interesting thing to point out. I would love to do a full comparison between the narrative and Fairly Local someday, because the song ties into a lot of the lore, so if you'd be interested in that, please let me know. One more interesting thing to point out is that the stage lighting features 8 beams of light, with one that starts to flicker towards the end. This is comparable to the music video, where there are 9 beams and 1 flickering toward the end of the video. It's been theorized that for the music video, the beams all stood for bishops, and the one that was flickering was a stand-in for Keon's, who is now dead. If we take the same logic to the live show, this could mean that one of the 8 remaining bishops is also close to dying, perhaps Nico. This gets a little complicated when we take the Paladin Strait video into consideration, because we see Clancy kill all the other bishops, or at least do something to incapacitate them, with Nico being the only one standing at the end. So maybe it could be inversing it and saying that there is only one left. Whatever it might imply, I thought that it was a fun detail to include and something to definitely make note of. Tyler continues to wear the Clancy mask for the next 3 songs, taking it off at the end of Car Radio. From there on out, there isn't too much lore-worthy stuff to make note of. The real heavy hitter comes at the B-stage transition. The first transition to B-stage is Tyler walking through the crowd to Routines in the Night, but the transition back to the main stage is where we start to see some more lore creep in. After Mulberry Street, Josh emerges from the seats, donned in full trench-era Torchbearer wear. He makes his way to Tyler's stage, where he holds out Clancy's jacket for Tyler. Tyler puts on the jacket and is led back to the main stage, where a curtain drop reveals a giant stage version of Dima, quickly getting set on fire. The boys transition into playing Navigating, and the show continues on from there. A few other notable things that happen is that we get Paladin Strait with a bandito interlude sung by Josh. Tyler takes off his jacket to reveal a Clancy shirt, and during Trees, the visuals on the screen feature a dead tree full of vultures, with burning that progressively gets worse until the whole tree is engulfed. And that's the show, or at least the first half of it. Already there's quite a bit to analyze, but I'll wait to go over the full run of the tour before I dive into anything. The next legs of the tour took place in Australia and South America, and there wasn't too much new lore included. During the final leg in Europe, though, we returned to the tradition of letters being found in the FPE, this time with Morse code attached to them. While the first leg's letters seemed to all be from citizens on the inside of Dima, these letters appeared to all come from banditos who have escaped. While they followed the same theme of providing snippets into the banditos' thoughts and fleshing out the world more, they also all emphasized two main points: the cyclical nature of Dima and vialism, and Clancy's rise to power. Addressing the first, many of the letters pondered the history of Dima and how it seems that the city has a lot longer of a history than once anticipated. In Preston's letter to Bricka, they note how they've found a cave at the bottom of a canyon that is filled with very old weathered art. This causes the realization that the rebellion against vialism is not new and has been tried many times over. Similarly, in Went's letter to Tari, they remember a time when Nil saved them from falling out a window, which then caused them to think about the bishop's past and how they must have been children once. As we know, the whole narrative is a story about cycles, so it makes sense that they are highlighting the cyclical nature of everything through these letters. It also makes sense when taking a step back to remember that this is all a metaphor for the cycle of depression. Depression is not a fight that one person or generation faces. It's a fight that has been going longer than any of us have been alive, so alluding to this through the characters really strengthens the in-world connection. The second theme of the letters was noting Clancy's rise to power, most importantly, the unease that it causes. This is brought up in 4 letters, 2 between Magnus and Balder, 1 from Torchbearer, and 1 from Clancy himself. Starting with Magnus and Balder, Balder tells Magnus how Clancy has made it through and how it is his time to take over. Clancy will be even more powerful than Nico. They have no idea what is coming, they say. Magnus responds with, "Is this what you wanted? Is this what any of us wanted?" Nico's power is the element that has given Dima and vialism such an iron fist. More power, even if it's Clancy's power, will corrupt the movement we fought so hard to bring to Dima. It's clear that the citizens are worried for Clancy, as he fights to take back the city from Nico and the other bishops. Torchbearer's letter to Clancy was a reminder to never forget what brought him to this point, that we destroyed them so we didn't become them. He ends with, "We must do better, Clancy, we must do better." These were the same words that were hidden in the first round of letters. Finally, we arrive at Clancy's letter to Torchbearer, and it's quite chilling. "The crown is heavy, but I can carry it. The city needs hope, and I alone can give it to them. But the city needs to feel powerful again, and snap out of the lifeless obedience they've been trapped in. I can give it to them. I gave them hope. I will be their example of absolute power. I feel alive again." It seems that this one letter validates the fears of everyone surrounding Clancy growing more powerful than Nico. We'll return to these letters in a moment, but let's finish out the tour by examining the shows throughout the Europe leg. Throughout this leg, there was one very important progression from show to show: the hesitation of Tyler, aka Clancy, putting on the B-stage jacket. Starting at the April 24th show in France, when handed the Clancy jacket, Tyler hesitated for a solid 30 seconds before putting on the jacket. This repeated for a few of the shows afterwards. Finally, at the last show on May 14th, Tyler did not take the jacket, as well as not acknowledging Josh's presence at all. Instead, Tyler walked off B-stage and made Josh walk to the main stage alone. Throughout the rest of the show, he made repeated gestures of being blind, such as covering his eyes with his stole, and also mimed hanging himself with it. When we take all of this into consideration, the letters, the tour visuals, the jacket, we see a hint of how the narrative might continue after Paladin Strait. Clancy is hungry for power. He's either beaten Nico or is about to beat Nico, but it's not the victory he was expecting. Instead, he's going to become the very thing that he and all the other banditos sought to destroy. Clancy is becoming a bishop. Now, let's examine all of the evidence here, but before we do, I'd like to point out that this was actually a theory I made all the way back in June of last year. Now, not everything that I theorized in that video is 100% applicable now, but I do go in depth over all the previous lore throughout the Clancy album that contributes to this theory that Clancy is a bishop. So I would definitely recommend giving that video a watch if you need more convincing or just want a deeper dive beyond the hints that we get from just the tour alone. But back to the information at hand, there are a few big clues that seem to lead us to this conclusion. The biggest confirmation for me is the fact that Clancy has lost the ability to see Torchbearer. When Clancy doesn't take the jacket from Torchbearer, it's not just because he's ignoring him. It's because he genuinely can't see him. And what would be the reason for this? Well, we know that the bishops can't see the bandito colors. That's why they use them, so they can secretly communicate with each other without the bishops knowing. And during this, Torchbearer is donned in his full bandito outfit. Clancy can't see him because he's wearing the bandito colors. The fact that Tyler explicitly covers his eyes multiple times throughout the rest of the night really solidifies this. He's not ignoring Torchbearer, he is blind to the fact that he's standing right there. The letters from both Clancy and the banditos seem to emphasize this transition too. Even if Clancy isn't turning exactly into a bishop, the letters heavily imply that Clancy has lost control and is becoming something just as powerful and possibly as corrupt if he isn't careful as the bishops. Clancy's own letter really screams a switch of personalities, especially the line, "I will be their example of absolute power. I feel alive again." Now, Clancy saying that he feels alive again could just be due to him overcoming his oppressors, but I also think that this in itself could be a sign of him turning into a bishop or something bishop-like. Think back to Tari's letter to Went. At the end of it, they mentioned that as they get older, they question the bishop's age more and more. We know that the bishops aren't immortal. We've seen Keons be killed. But they certainly do have this ageless feel to them, almost as if they're not just old men, but more so these ancient powers. I would wager that this has something to do with their powers to seize. Whenever the bishops use their power to seize a dead citizen, it could increase their own lifespans, or at the very least make them feel younger from the life that they're stealing. Since Clancy also has this power and used the power of the antlers to take down the bishops, it's possible that he's feeling this rush of power and youth, and it's making him feel alive again. Moving on to the new album, the double album theory is one that has existed pretty much since Clancy came out, especially since Paladin Strait ended on such a cliffhanger. We need something to wrap up the storyline. That's where this album comes in. So what do I think the album will add to the storyline? Well, first of all, I think that it's going to pick up somewhere in the immediate aftermath of Paladin Strait, or at least one of the songs and music videos will, even if it isn't the first on the album. If you remember back to the end of Paladin Strait, Clancy closes his eyes, right before slowly opening them back up at the end of the video, upon which the video cuts to black. And in the lead up to the album being announced, the band's account changed their profile picture to an eye slowly closing day by day. The Blurryface Twitter account also posted "Broke Your Confidence, Hello Clancy," which again is referencing the end of Paladin Strait where Nico says "Hello Clancy." Even the announcement post makes reference to this, but this time including "Hello Blurryface" as well, and "Let's finish this." Additionally, the band's logo is all black and red now, whereas the previous one included in the eye closing had bits of yellow in it. All of this adds to the possibility that Clancy is becoming a bishop, or at the very least is doubting his position. The caption including both Clancy and Blurryface in it is really interesting because on one hand, it could just be acknowledging both Clancy and Nico, the two characters that are at the end of the music video, but because of the explicit use of Blurryface, not Nico, I think that both of these terms are referring to Tyler's character. He is both Clancy and Blurryface. Even if the final battle isn't Clancy realizing that him and Nico are the same person, as I predicted before, I think that the final battle could still be Nico versus Blurryface, that is, Clancy's Blurryface, where Clancy will realize that he had his own Blurryface in him all along. The rest of the album might be his and Torchbearer's fight to stop Clancy from becoming the next Nico, and to rescue him for good, finally defeating Blurryface once and for all. I think that would be really cathartic to fans who have been here since the Blurryface album, to finally have Tyler defeat that part of him. At the very, very least, I definitely think our more traditional idea of Blurryface will show up in the album, especially with it coinciding with the 10-year anniversary of that album. Okay, that was a lot of rambling, and as I made note of at the start, most of this I recorded before we even got the album announcement, so some of it might not have been completely fleshed out. If you would like a more polished deep dive into this theory, please let me know and consider subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to show that you're interested in this type of content and lets me know that I should make more. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.